CSS transitions is one way to animate an element in Vue. Vue supports CSS animations, which are a more advanced way to animate elements. They give you more control over your animations. This isn't a CSS course, so I won't be diving too deep into the CSS syntax. We're going to comment out the first transition we created. We don't want it to bother us when working on a new transition. We're going to create another transition using CSS animations. To get started, we're going to add a new transition component. We'll place it below the first transition component in the template block. Inside of it, we'll be adding another heading with a basic message. We're going to add the name property with a value of zoom. We'll want to toggle the animation like last time. Let's apply the if directive to the heading element. We'll use the flag property to toggle the animation. We're going to make a zoom animation. Before we work on the animation, I want to add some styles to space out the headings. Inside the style block, select the heading. We'll set the width to 400 pixels. The padding and margin will be set to 20 pixels. While we're here, we're going to shorten the fade animation to last 1 second. 3 seconds is way too long. Next, let's work on the animation itself. We're going to create a zooming animation. If the element is entering the page, then it should zoom in. If the element is leaving, then it should zoom out. This effect can be done with transitions, but I want to show you how animations would work with Vue. At the bottom of the style block, we'll add the animation using the keyframes keyword. We'll call the animation zoom in. We'll keep the animation simple by using the from and to states. We won't bother with percentages. Inside the from block, we'll use the transform property to create the zooming effect. A zooming effect can be created using the scale CSS function. We'll scale the element to 0, 0. This value will make the element look invisible. It's not really. It's just been shrunken down to a very small size. Then, inside the to block, we'll set the scale back to 1, 1. This property will set the size back to what it was originally. This animation will give us the zoom effect we want. The zoom in animation is taken care of. Now we need to create the zoom out animation. We're going to create a copy of the zoom in animation. The animations are the same except in reverse. We don't need to rewrite the whole thing. We'll change the name to zoom out. We'll then switch the from and to states to get the opposite effect of the zoom in animation. The animations are set. The next step is to use them when Vue adds the classes to our elements. We're going to be using the same set of classes Vue has provided before. It's the exact same thing. Since the from and to states are set inside the keyframe, we don't have to rewrite the animation. Therefore, we can add the animations to the zoom enter active and zoom leave active classes. To add the animations, we need to use the animation property and pass in the animation name. For the enter animation, this will be zoom in. We're going to make the animation duration 1 second long with a linear speed curve. The mode will be set to forwards. By setting the mode to forwards, CSS will leave the element as is once the animation is complete. We don't want the animation to reset the scale to 0. Once again, Vue will be able to detect how long the animation should play by checking the duration you pass in the CSS. It'll appropriately add or remove the elements based on this value. We'll add the same set of properties to the zoom leave active class except with the zoom out animation. Let's give things a test. Back inside the browser, the heading shouldn't appear. After pressing the button, you'll see it zoom in or out depending on the current value of the flag property. Vue is able to detect the length of animation. It's able to correctly add or remove the element after the animation is complete. View can work with both transitions or animations. It can even work with both at the same time. Let's see what that looks like. Along with zooming in and out, we'll add a fade animation to the heading. Back inside the editor, we'll apply the transition property to both classes. The duration will be 1 second long. We'll set the opacity to 0 in the zoom, leave, and zoom enter classes. We won't be setting the opacity to 1 because that's the default value anyway. With that set, let's refresh the page and try pressing the button. The zoom and fade animations are being applied to the heading. This transition works fine, but there may be one problem you will run across when using both transitions and animations. If we look back at the code, you'll notice that both types of animations have the same duration, 1 second. What if we had two completely different durations? Update the transition to 2 seconds. By default, View will use the duration with the longest time. If possible, you want the duration in both properties to match. If necessary, View allows you to decide which duration to use. Inside the template block, we can add the type attribute to the transition component. The value for this can be either animation or transition. The value you pass in will tell View which duration it will use. Let's set this to animation. Since the animation is 1 second long, View will play the animation for 1 second. If other animations are playing on the same element, they won't finish if they play longer than 1 second. This is important to know if you plan on using a combination of CSS transitions and animations. We'll test this in one moment. There's one last thing I want to show you. Sometimes you may want to play the animation when the page loads. For example, in the data object, let's say I set the flag data property to true. This will mean that the element should appear on the page. However, if I were to switch back over the browser and refresh, you'll notice that the animations don't play. Instead, the elements just appear. It works, but it would be nice if the animation could play. We can override the default behavior by adding a property to the transition component called appear. Back in the editor, we'll add the appear property to the transition component. Switching back to the browser, the animation plays on the initial load. This animation is exactly what we wanted. The animation will play for 1 second. The zoom effect is what will last for 1 second while the fade effect lasts for 2 seconds. However, we never see the fade animation complete because the transition component is using the duration from the animation CSS property. We're finished reviewing CSS animations. You're free to use transitions, animations, or both. It's all preference. You have a variety of options at your disposal.